Oh, it's class. Classy class. I quit anyhow. Good riddance to Tater Jr. Hello, everybody. Welcome to History with Mr. E. Today we're going to talk about the steps it took for Europe to go back to war. Even after the millions and millions of people died in World War I, war was inevitable. A new war was inevitable. Many economies were devastated in Europe after World War I, Italy especially. And Italy's economy allowed, of course, Germany too, but Italy's people were looking for something different and better for their country, and they allowed the fascist party, which is a type of communism or socialism, that allowed for some capitalism to still take place, but really it was just complete government control. In 1922, they allowed the fascist party to take over. A little newspaper guy named Benito Mussolini, who wore weird hats and coats, called to revive the great Roman Empire in Italy. And he wanted to invade North Africa and he took over the government. He marched with a small army and took over the government, and the king of Italy was just like, fine, see what you can do with it, because I'm doing a poopy job. And he took over peacefully for the most part. And he began to build a powerful army in Italy and to invade North Africa. In Germany, it was worse. The economy was completely destroyed. And a depression hit. It was much worse than the Depression in America. And people were starving in the streets. A little guy with a funny mustache named Adolf Hitler, who was a war hero in Germany, started and came to the head of the National Socialist Party. And the National Socialist Party, through force, began to take over factories and businesses and to rebuild his country through force and through fear. Remember, Hitler ruled through force and fear. They burned places that didn't go along with them. They killed anybody they felt like killing. Because one thing about socialists and fascists and communists and the National Socialist Party, which is known as the Nazis, they don't value human life. They don't care who has to die for them to gain power. Hitler wanted to build a master race of tall, stout, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people that was going to revive the Teutonic Knights of old and conquer the world. Italy and Germany, under the fascists and Nazis, began to imprison and kill off Jewish people, Lutheran people, and Catholic people, because fascists and Nazis don't believe in God. They believe in only the power of man. Hitler gained absolute power in Germany. He believed that the Jews, who were excellent business people, and capitalists, especially Americans, and even communists, like in Russia, were out to conquer Germany and began to imprison and kill off all the ones he could find. The socialist thought was based on evolution, the survival of the fittest. But it wasn't just the survival of the fittest, it was the survival of the fittest and the strongest. And they began to not just survive as the fittest, but to kill off anybody that was weaker. That meant mentally handicapped people, physically handicapped people, the old and the sick. Instead of letting old people live out their lives and die peacefully, they would kill them off. Instead of, um, what if a baby was born with a birth defect? It was killed. What if you had a cousin who was born mentally retarded? Even if they were grown to an adult age, oftentimes the Nazis would have them killed. This was survival of the fittest at the most extreme level. Abortions took place wholesale. They began to force what they believed to be inferior ethnic groups, like Jews and Polish, into concentration camps by the millions of people. They began to kill the Jewish people in giant buildings that they would tell them they were about to get a shower, and then they would put poison gas into those buildings and smother everybody to death in the buildings. This is called the Holocaust. And 6 million Jewish people were murdered this way, and they think approximately another 6 million other people that weren't Jewish died also. This lasted from 1934 to 1945, and it is one of the great travesties in world history. Many of these prison camps weren't even in Germany, they were in Poland, but they were run by Germans. The Polish people were the first to suffer under the Nazis' regime outside of Germany. How did Europe fall? Now, Hitler and Mussolini formed what they called the Axis powers. An axis, well, talk to Mr. Eckhart about what an axis is, but they believed that the entire world would turn on the axis between Rome, and Berlin. And they made a Nazi-Soviet pact with Stalin also that called for peace with the communists. That happened in August of 1939. So Mussolini and Hitler are close allies. There is a peace pact between Hitler and Stalin, who is now the ruler of Russia since Lenin had died. And he was a terrible, terrible person too. He killed millions upon millions of his own people just through paranoia. If he thought someone was out to get him, he'd just kill him. If he thought an entire political party was going against his policies, he would kill them. On September 1st, 1939, Germany made the first steps into World War II by invading Poland from the west. Remember, Germany is basically in the middle of Eastern Europe, and Poland sits somewhere between Germany and Russia and China. They invaded from the west, and the Russians invaded from the east, and World War II had officially begun. 17 days later, September 17th, 1939, Poland had fallen. The Nazis and the Russians chased down any intelligent people, they call them the intelligentsia, any educated people, musicians, artists, professors, doctors, lawyers that were in Poland, and murdered every one of them because they saw them as a threat to their greatness. Murder off all the smart people, they thought. And of course, that wasn't the only people they murdered. Anybody that put up any resistance whatsoever died, and died hard at the hands of the Nazis and the communists. Germany did something called Blitzkrieg. That's a German word for lightning war. Blitz, lightning, Krieg, war. Blitzkrieg. And what it was not just a slow invasion, but a rapid, massive invasion, where all at once, all of the Nazi tanks, all the Nazi troops, all the Nazi planes would invade and destroy a country and take over all at once, just bam, in a blitzkrieg. Hitler began to move across North Africa with Mussolini and straight east across Europe and just knock out one country after the other, and tomorrow we'll continue to talk about the Nazis' march toward France.